everyone in internet land, Gretchen Wegner here. So I had a couple clients today come to me saying that they were having a hard time struggling through two major pieces of literature that they're reading in their English classes right now. One is Great Expectations and the other is The Great Gatsby. And they both wanted to know, like, oh, how can I not fall asleep while I'm reading? But how can I also really get something out of the reading so that I can contribute in class and can do well on the test? And we discussed the role that spark notes can and could play in their reading. Now, one of them, the young man who's reading The Great Gatsby right now, said that he had been reading spark notes after he read the chapter. So he'd read the chapter first and then he'd read spark notes. And that worked okay. It was kind of helpful, but the more we talked about it, the more we realized that he could actually be reviewing spark notes before he reads the chapter. Now, I can already hear a number of English teachers hearing me suggest that and saying, no, people shouldn't be using spark notes at all. But I just want to remind you that a lot of the time the clients that I work with have some specific learning differences, including attention deficit, which makes it just super hard to focus on lots of words after words after words, especially if it's not naturally interesting to students. And in the anti-boring approach, we're looking for ways to keep the brain from being bored. So I actually recommended to this young man that he read the analysis section of each chapter. You know how it says there's a summary first on spark notes and then there's an analysis afterwards. So read the analysis, not the summary, so you know what kinds of themes you're looking for. I also recommended that he have a bookmark tucked into his book with a list of the themes that they're discussing in his English class, so he knows the ones he's looking for. And he's actually really lucky because his teacher has published all of the essay questions that they are going to be choosing from later on, so he can actually be annotating towards those questions as he goes. Together we practiced reading the analysis section first and then going back to read the book. And actually, before reading the book word for word, I had him trace his finger down the page and just notice what words popped out at him as he followed his eye down. And he discovered that after reading the analysis section in Spark Notes and doing this thing here, he was able to actually kind of see how the chapter was mapped out and where the different themes were going to be popping up. And then it made it much more easy for him to sit down and read word for word and then really pay attention to the language and the quotes and the metaphors. So he's going to play with that this week, but he found it really useful. Now, the Great Expectations book, we also discovered that this young woman could really be mapping out the different characters in the book, and she will read Spark Notes before she goes to the book simply to see which characters are going to come up during this chapter, because there's so many characters in that book. And she's going to actually map them out with little circles. And then when she's done that, she gets curious, right? So the brain gets a little curious, it makes it less boring, and then she will be able to read it word for word as she goes through the chapter. I'd be curious to hear how you keep yourself from falling asleep while you're reading. Please feel free to comment below, and I hope these tips have been useful.